The girl Sheikh Hamdan loved before his wife ever met him, before the wedding, before the announcement, before the royal family released the news that the Crown Prince of Dubai had married, and the world celebrated a union that looked, from the outside, like everything a royal marriage is supposed to look like. There was a girl, a real one, not chosen by anyone, not arrived at through any process of strategic evaluation or family alignment or the careful political calculation that royal marriages are usually the product of. Just a girl young, real, someone Hamdan had found on his own, in the ordinary way that people find each other when they are not yet fully aware of all the reasons the world is going to make finding her complicated. He loved her before his wife ever knew his name in any personal sense. Before Sheikha bin Said Al Thani had any idea that the man she would one day be arranged to marry already had a heart that was spoken for. This is her story, the first one, the girl who came before everything, and what it meant that she did. She appeared in his life during a period that people who follow his story closely think of as the before time, before the arranged marriage formalized itself into something the family could not undo, before the political calculations had fully closed around the question of who Hamdan was going to spend his life with, before the title and the position and the decades of royal planning that surrounded his future had finished assembling the walls that would eventually determine who was allowed to stay in his private life and who was going to be asked to leave it. In that earlier time, before the walls were fully built, there was a quality of openness in his life that the years since have gradually closed. And she arrived in that openness. And he let her in the way people let someone in when they are young enough to believe that love is something the world accommodates rather than something the world constantly rearranges according to needs that have nothing to do with love. She was not from a royal family. That is the first thing that made her complicated in the context of his life, and the first thing that made her real in the context of his heart. The women chosen by royal families come with pedigree and political value and a kind of measured worthiness that has nothing to do with the specific human quality that makes one person irresistible to another. She had none of that official worthiness. What she had was something that could not be evaluated or weighed or approved by a committee or presented at a family meeting as evidence of suitability. She had the specific quality that made Hamdan feel, in her presence, like a person rather than a position, like someone whose value was in who he was rather than what he carried. And that quality, rarer than any title, more valuable than any alliance, was what he fell in love with. He was young when it started, still in the process of becoming the man the world would eventually know as Fazza, still finding the voice that would produce poetry that millions of people around the world would one day read and feel moved by without knowing who or what the words were originally written for. He found a significant part of that voice through her, through the specific experience of loving someone and wanting to find language equal to the feeling. The early poems, the ones that carry the most unguarded quality, the most direct emotional honesty, the least awareness of an audience, were shaped in part by what he felt for her. Not written to impress, written because the feeling demanded somewhere to go, and the page was the only place wide enough to hold it. She loved him back, not the title, not the crown prince. The young man who wrote things in the dark, and needed someone to know that the things were real. She was that someone, in the specific way that first love always finds the most essential version of a person rather than the managed one, because first love does not yet know about the managed version, and so responds only to what is actually present. She found the real Hamdan and she loved him. And for a period of time that both of them probably thought was the beginning of a permanent direction rather than a chapter with an ending, they were simply two people who had found each other and were building something small and honest and theirs. His family noticed. That is when the complications began arriving. Not through confrontation. The style of his family has never been confrontational when the quieter forms of management are available. Through the gradual application of pressure that royal families apply when they have identified something in the private life of one of their members that does not fit the plan. She was not suitable, not because of anything wrong with her, because of the specific way that suitability is defined in a world where marriage is about alliances and bloodlines and the long term interests of families rather than the short term reality of two people who have found each other and want to stay found. She did not have the right last name, did not come from the right family, did not carry the political value that a marriage at his level was always eventually going to be required to carry. The pressure built slowly, and as understanding communicated without being stated directly. The sense growing over time that what he had with her was not something the family was going to permit to become permanent. He resisted in the way that young men resist things they are not yet ready to give up, quietly, persistently, with the specific stubbornness of someone who still believes that the feeling is strong enough to protect what it belongs to. He wrote more. The poetry became more urgent in this period, more desperate around the edges, more aware of the threat, as though putting the feeling into words was a way of making it more real, and more real was a way of making it harder for the world to dismiss. But the world did not dismiss based on feelings. It dismissed based on plans. And the plan that Sheikh Mohammed had for his son's future had no room in it for the girl Hamdan had found before anyone in the official story had been consulted. The marriage to Sheikha Shaika was arranged. The announcement was made, and the girl who had loved him before his wife ever met him was left in the position that the women in his life have always eventually found themselves in, outside the official story, unacknowledged, in possession of a chapter of his life that the public record would never contain. His wife married a man she did not know, had already given his heart away, walked into a union without knowing that the distance she was going to feel from her husband from the very beginning had a specific source, a specific face, a specific history, a specific love that had come first, and that no arrangement, however official and however strategically correct, was ever fully going to displace. The girl who came before is still out there somewhere, living a life that looks, from the outside, completely ordinary. No palace, no title, no connection to the official story of the Crown Prince of Dubai that the world has been given to follow and admire. Just a woman who once loved someone before the world got its hands on him, and who understood, eventually, that the world having its hands on him was going to change everything about what loving him was possible of becoming. She was the first, and in some ways she will always be the most important. Not because the love lasted. It did not last, not in the form it was supposed to last in, but because it came first, before the management, before the arrangements. before the walls were fully built, when he was still the most real version of himself. And the love that finds a person at their most real never fully leaves. It stays in the poems, in the early ones specifically, in the voice that was still being formed when she was in it, in the part of Fazza that the world fell in love with without ever knowing that she was the one who helped shape it. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. Every week I bring you the real story of Sheikh Hamdan, the loves that came first, the girls who shaped him before the world decided who he was going to be, and the truth that lives in every chapter, the official story never told.